Welcome to the second session of foundation.
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you took a little rest and reviewed at least some parts of what happened in the first session. Okay. Can I assume that you reviewed? Okay, say yes. Let me see how many had reviewed. Not all, just some parts. Bits and pieces, that's good enough for me. Okay, that's pretty good. Okay. Right. So let me start sharing. I'm going to ask questions. Let us see what you want to do. Yeah. See, you know that every state has a police academy. Okay. And for the post of police constable, okay, they choose. Okay, the various criteria. So, okay, two physical criteria are the following. One, the height should be in 66 inches minimum. Nowadays they will write it in centimeter or millimeter, but it is 5 feet 6 inches minimum height. And then they also measure the chest. I'm talking about men only. When they measure the chest, it should be 34 inches. Right? So, if for him to be eligible, the man should have at least these two. These two must have. Now, Mr. X walks into, okay, police recruitment parade, and a sergeant measures these two, height and chest, and he is rejected. Do you know why he is rejected? How many of you know why he is rejected? Yeah, you ask somebody from group 1 or whichever way, it doesn't matter.
Manoj,
any of one property, he is not eligible.
No, say that. I already gave the property, so you should tell me.
So he exists.
The height must be
One
66
property.
inches minimum, and the chest measurement should be 34 inches minimum. So, this person, Mr. X, is rejected. What? Okay, next. I think he has some network problem. Next.
agree?
No, I'm asking about daily occurrence. Only 34, 35 have an answer for this? I just don't believe this. Come on. Okay. If somebody is eligible, he should have these two conditions satisfied, right? Somebody is not eligible. What does that mean? Sudipa Mishra, can you tell me why you don't understand? What you don't understand? Sudipa.
Sudeepa Mishra. Shall I ask somebody else? Sir?
Yeah.
Samiran?
No, if she does not respond next time, you remove her. She should come up with something. If she's not paying
One
attention,
of the condition does not.
yeah,
Samiran is answer.
go ahead, go ahead.
One
Samiran,
of the condition does not hold, sir.
So his height is strictly less than 5 feet 6 inches, or his chest measurement is strictly less than 34 inches. You understand that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sure. Very good. Okay. Now suppose, yeah, you can unmute yourself. Sorry, mute yourself. Suppose you want to go and buy a mobile. Okay. Your papa has struck a lottery, so he's ready to spend around 50,000 on you. Okay. So you want to buy a mobile. So you are looking for the latest OnePlus. Yeah. Because that's one of the luxury segment, but not as great as Apple. Okay. So it's still within reasonable. Now what you are looking for is you want it to have your futuristic. So you want a 5G and also you want 120 megapixel camera, right? The shopkeeper shows a mobile and you say, I don't want it. Why you see, what are you looking for? You are looking for 5G, okay, right? And you are also looking for 100 and I don't remember what I said. Okay, 112 megapixel camera. You rejected the mobile. Why would you reject? Do all of you understand? Just say yes. I'm not going to ask now. Pick.
Yeah,
Very
now
good.
60.
Now it's I'm happy now, right? So I'm looking for both the conditions should be satisfied. If one of them is not satisfied, I'm not going to. Do you understand? This gives us a kind of system. So suppose I have two statements, S1 and S2, right? Now I combine them. Okay, I get a new statement. Okay, I'll give an example, don't bother. S1 is a statement. Okay, this person has at least, his height is at least 5 feet 6 inches. And the S2 is, this person has at least 34 inches chest. Okay, chest measurement. Okay, now I say yes, this is a new statement. The new statement is both combination which is combined using AND. You understand that? So if S is true, that means S1 must be true as well as S2 must be true. Both the statement must be true, right? Do you understand that? So if S1 is false, what does it mean then? How many of you understand my question? So we are making an abstract statement out of whatever you have seen. I have two statements, S1 and S2. Okay. And I'm combining them using the conjunction. This is called conjunction. You might, if you remember English grammar. Okay. And I get a new statement S. Okay. This person height is at least 5 feet 6 inches and this person's chest measurement is at least 34 inches. You understand that? Now, when is this statement true? This statement is true if each one of the constituent statement is true. That is, S1 must be true. This person's height must be at least 5 feet 6 inches. And this person's chest measurement must be at least 34 inches. Then only the new statement is true. Do you understand? All of you, please say yes if you understand. Quick. Okay.
Cross 60.
Very good. So now if the statement is false, what does it mean then? I get S negated. S is not true. S is false. Okay, negation of S. What does it mean then? That means, yeah, one of them is not true. S1 is not true or S2 is not true. Therefore, we get a new statement. You see that? This means S1, negation of S1 or negation of S2. And don't get confused with these things. What I'm talking about, common sense. Just look back my example. I gave you already two examples. Right? I wanted a mobile. I wanted it to be 5G. I also wanted to have 112 megapixel camera. All right. Then only that mobile is what I want. Suppose I reject that mobile. Either the first condition is not true, namely 5G, it's not 5G compatible, or the second condition is not met, namely it does not have 112 megapixel camera. Do you follow that? Yeah. So the negation of S is negation of S1 or negation of S2. There are two statements. Now they are combined using conjunction OR. How many of you follow this? We are going to give a very well-known example. All of you know this. I am going to give that. Do you understand this? Quick. Good. Now suppose I have two sets A and B, right? Now my S1 is the statement X is an element of A. My statement S2 is this X is an element of B, right? So what is S1 and S2 signify? What is the meaning of the new statement S? How many of you understand this? Quick. What does statement S mean now? If S is true, that means S1 is true and S2 is true. That is both S1, S2 are true. So what does this really mean? How many of you understand? Quick. So the statement S simply means X is in A and X is in B, which is same as saying X is in A intersection B. Therefore, truth S is true is same as saying okay, X is an element of A and B. Do you understand this? Sure? Okay. Now let's look at another situation. So what did we learn? Let's summarize. What we learned is the following. If I get a new statement here, I have two statements S1 and S2. I combine them using the and conjunction, then I get a new statement. When is the new statement true? S is true if and only if both S1 and S2 are true. Therefore, when S is false, if one of them is false, maybe both also, I don't care, but one of them is false. Do you understand that? Therefore, negation of S is negation of S1 or negation of S2. This is what we have seen. Now let's look at another example. Okay, slightly on the other side. Like there exists for every, now I have two things. So I will look at that. So now let's assume I have a son. Okay. I am looking for the best, okay, college. Okay, I want to admit him in the best college in my city. Okay. Now the college admission, if he has to seek the admission in this college, okay, then they demand he should have 100%. Or I give 100 lakhs and 10 lakhs. Do you understand this? Yeah. So when do you think my son X gets admission? What does it mean? When I say my son X got admission in the college, what does it really mean? How many of you understand?
Uh, 66.
That's not good. It could be better. Yeah. So can you ask somebody? What does it mean? X got admission in this college. What does it really mean?
Vanisha Sharma. Sorry, Vanisha Verma. Oh, I'm sorry. Amlan? I called them in. Sorry.
Yeah, Amlan was called in the morning.
Okay. Shilpa?
Either he has 100% or he has 10 lakhs.
Right. Do all of you understand that? Maybe X got already 100%, therefore on merit he got it. Okay. But he got only 99.8%. So the college didn't give him admission. So I paid 10 lakh rupees to get admission for him. Right. Therefore, now let us look at, let us make an abstract statement now. So I have a statement S1. I have another statement S2. I combine them using OR. This is the conjunction. I get a new statement. So when S is true, okay, the statement S1 is X got 100%. Statement S2 is, okay, his father is ready to pay 10 lakh rupees for admission. Right? You understand? Then X gets admission. So the truth of S means either S1 is true or S2 is true. Do you understand that? This is if and only if one of S1, S2 is true. How many of you understand this? Okay, very good. So I think it's a 68 seems to be the maximum, huh? Only
70.
once it went up to 70.
Now it has went up to 72, sir.
Oh, that's very good. Good. See, only then I will be more enthusiastic to teach. So you should also be enthusiastic. Okay. Therefore, when S is false, what does it mean? If S is false, that is my son X did not get admission. What does it mean? Okay. He did not get 100%. Okay. And I was never ready to pay 10 lakh rupees. Do you understand that? So S1 is false. That is, he did not get 100%. And S2 is false. That is, I was not ready to pay 10 lakh rupees. Do you understand this? That is, negation of S is same as negation of S1 and negation of S2. Just spend about 10 seconds. Okay, we will have a PRP, pause, review, proceed. Okay, then we will come to a mathematical problem. Notice that all are common sense. Okay, that's why I started with daily language examples. How many of you understood? Very good. Let me just quickly another one, an example. Okay. So I am working in a university, let us say, due to lockdown. So I was asked to report to office only on Wednesdays or Fridays. Wednesdays and Fridays. Okay. You understand that? I have to report to office either on Wednesday or on Friday because there is a restriction. Only about 25% of the staff can be there. All right. So I have to go to the office either on Wednesday or on Friday. So I did not go today. So what does it mean? What can you say about today? Notice that all are very common examples, real life day-to-day examples. If I did not go to office on a particular day, what can you conclude about the day? Can it be a Wednesday? No. Can it be a Friday? No. So it is not a Wednesday and it is not a Friday. Somebody has said no. What is his problem?
No. For the question, is it a?
I was saying no for the question.
Okay, right. It's all right. It's a mixed signals. That's it. No problem. Good. Okay. So let us look at. Can somebody guess what should be the example I'm going to deal with this for this? Remember, for the earlier one, okay, this was the example I looked at. Okay, I wanted to combine two statements with and the example I looked at was this mathematical example. Now I am combining statement with or. What should be the mathematical example I should think of? How many of you know the answer? Please say yes if you know what example I should look for now. You see that? I'm not even telling you what I'm going to ask. Now you have to guess it. How many of you can guess? What should be the example I should ask now? Very less. Come on, all of you think. I'm not asking anything difficult, okay? It's like a dump charade. Okay. I do a bit of actions and then you have to see what I want to say. 29. Very disappointing. Come on. I have faith in you. You can do better than this. How many had answered? Only 36?
Yes.
That's very bad. You see that? you are not thinking of this as a game. Don't think of this as mathematics. Think of it as a game. It's a guessing game. For and I used x is in A and x is in B. Now I want to combine a statement using R. What should be the statement I should make? This is very trivial. Even an 8th standard student would have said it, because he don't have any inhibition. You have inhibitions. You have fear of failure. Yeah, you ask somebody, Sukumar.
Priyanshi.
Yes, sir. Sir, sorry, I didn't get your question.
Move on to the next.
Rahul Gogai.
Yes, sir.
Don't say yes, sir, etc. Come with the answer. If you don't know, just move on. Next.
Joshua.
Sir, are you going to talk about conditional statements, implication?
You are not trying to follow. You are not thinking along with me. What you are doing is you are in your own way of thinking. So you are somewhat diverse from me. Next.
Sriharini. Sriharan.
Are you?
Sir.
Yes.
X belongs to A union B.
Yes. I want to deal with the thing X belong to A union B. So what are this first statement? S1 is X belong to A. S2 is X belong to B. Therefore, S1 or S2. I want this to be true. What does that mean? X must be in A or X must be in B. That means what? That is the statement is. Therefore, when X is true, S is true if X belong to S1 or X belong to S2. That means X belong to A union B. Very good. Well done, Harini. Harini, right?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Good. How many of you understand now at least? You see that? At least another 10 of you, yeah, please remove this, clear this, yes, clear this, yes, please. At least 10 of you must have thought of this answer. You are shy of saying that. How many of you know the answer, but you are shy? Say yes now. Now you see that? Now do you feel bad? Yeah? You could have answered, right? I said, I have faith in you. You didn't have faith in yourself. Okay. So, now there are two statements now you have made. Let us understand. I have two statements, S1 and S2. There are two ways of combining using AND. And I get a new statement, yes. Therefore, the negation of S is the negation of S1 or negation of S2. So, you understand this? This is what we saw. And similarly, then I have another statement T, which is, I have two statements T1 and T2, and I combine them using R. Therefore, I get it statement T. When is T true? T is true if now T1, T2 is true. Okay. Therefore, when T is false, that is when negation of T, what does it mean? Negation of T means negation of T1 and negation of T2. Let's go back to my exam which I said. Okay. Yeah. My son would have got admission if he had 100%, or I am ready to pay 10 lakh rupees. Right. So if he didn't get admission, that is negation. He got admission means he got 100%, or I paid 10 lakh rupees. He didn't get admission. That's a negation. That means what? He didn't get 100% and I didn't pay 10 lakh rupees. Do you follow that? Is it simple? Okay, please understand this. So now this takes care of lot of things. Okay. There are a lot more I can say, but that's good enough for me. Okay. Just to make sure that you followed whatever I said, let me say, suppose I have statement S1 and S2 and I have S. Okay, this is a new statement, right? And I know S1 is false. What can you conclude about S? How many of you know the answer? I have two statements S1 and S2. I combine them by AND. I know S1 is false. What can I conclude about S2? Come on, it's very slow. It doesn't even hit on 60, hovering around 50. Do you really have serious problem? Okay. If I say S1 is false, then S must be false, because if S has to be true, both S1 and S2 must be true. I said already S1 is false. You understand that? Now let us say I have two statements T1 and T2 and T. I know T is true. I know T is true. But I know T is false. T1 is false. What can I conclude? Come on. Now at least tell me. Don't let me down. Okay. T is a statement. Combine T1 or T2. I know T is true, but I also know T1 is false. What can you conclude?
63, sir. 64.
Good. What can I conclude? Ask somebody quickly.
Syed Rahman.
T2 must be true.
Very good. Okay. Now you will see this kind of logic when you prove something. You may want, okay, you may have some hypothesis. Okay. Then you want to say, okay, either this holds, okay, or this holds. Okay, something that is your T1 or T2. Then the way your teacher will prove is, if star holds, I have nothing else to prove. Therefore, the result is true. Theorem is true. Therefore, assume star does not hold. Then what he has to prove? He has to prove, okay, the cross holds. Do you follow that? How many of you understand what I'm saying? Okay. For example, if I say A is greater than or equal to 0, that means A equal to 0 or A is strictly positive. Do you understand this? Right? This statement is true if A is 0 or A must be positive. This is the, okay. This statement is actually combination of these two statements with an OR. Okay, this is the first time you will be learning that. Okay, right? Now to prove this A is positive, okay, if A equal to 0, then there is nothing for me to prove. Suppose A is not positive, sorry, A is not equal to 0, then what do I have to prove? I have to prove A is actually positive. Do all of you understand this? Quick.
69, sir.
Very good. Now suppose this statement A greater than or equal to 0 is false. What does it mean then? We already used it in the morning. Okay. A is greater than or equal to 0 is a combination of two statements. A equal to 0 or A is greater than 0. So I say this statement is false. Okay. That means this is also false. That is A is not equal to 0. And this is also false. That means A is not greater than 0. Therefore, by law of trichotomy, I can conclude A is less than 0. Do you follow that? Yeah. If this is false, A greater than or equal to 0 is false, how do I know A is less than 0? First, okay, I remember my law of trichotomy. Given any real number x, either x equal to 0 or x is greater than 0 or x is less than 0. Now let's look at A greater than or equal to 0 is false. But that's a combination of two statements. A equal to 0 or A greater than 0. If this statement A greater than or equal to 0 is false, that means A equal to 0 is false. And A greater than 0 is also false. But for any real number, one of the three must happen and only one will happen. That means A must be less than 0. A fact which you have been using throughout your life. How many of you understand it now? Quick. We are going to move out of this now. Quick. I want an answer. Good. So that's the end of the basic logic which I wanted. Okay. As you go along in the course, you will see the teachers will take conscious effort to bring out whatever logic we are using. Okay. They will simply not write something happened, therefore it is true, like that. They will try to explain what is the logic involved. Okay. They will take very conscious effort to explain to you. So this is enough for us. Now what we are going to do in this rest of the lecture is we are going to talk about subsets. Okay. I am not going to define what is a set. You have a vague idea what is a set. So that's good enough for me. Okay. We are not going to say what the definition of a set. Now, the unfortunate thing is the set theory, etc., is taught in a high school level nowadays. So when you come to college, your teachers think that you already know about sets and functions. So they don't make you think properly and train you to do modern mathematics properly. Okay. So many students struggle because of this lack of training. What we plan to do is to take care of that. So the first thing is when you say A is a subset of X, most often what you do is you will have something and then you list the elements. Okay. You list all the elements of A. Okay. Suppose my X is English alphabet. Okay. And my subset A is vowel, set of vowel. Then I will write A equal to A, E, I, O, U. I hope I'm right. Okay. This is what is called listing. Suppose I have a class. Okay. There are something like 10 to the power 20 students. Okay. There are not so many human beings. Don't worry. Okay. There are students. Now there are only 2 genders. Okay. Then I want the set of boys in my class. Then what I can do is I can list all of them. Right. That is my subset A. But modern mathematics, what it does is it uses a description. There is a technical word, I'm not using it. Okay. It describes. If you give an element, so this is my subset A. Now you give an element. Okay. Maybe I should use a different color. You give me an element. I want to know, I want to give a condition when it will belong to A. X belong to A if it satisfies some condition. When I say a condition may not be one condition. It may be like a condition 1 and condition 2 or condition 3. It may be combination. So the correct thing is set of all X in X so that X has some property. The property may be combination. It need not be one single one. How many of you understand? For example, when I want to define the set of vowels in the English alphabet X, okay, I am going to do something. Okay, English teachers will be very, very angry with me. Set of all X in X so that X is a vowel. How many of you find it very amusing? English teacher will say X is not a vowel, it's a consonant. Right? You understand this? I am not listing, I am simply saying what is the property. If you give me English letter, you give me English letter P, does it belong to B? If only P is a vowel, it belongs to, otherwise it doesn't belong to. Now give me the English letter X, not this X, okay? English letter X in the alphabet. Does it belong to V? No, it's not a vowel. How many of you understand what I'm talking? Okay, this is a very, very crucial way. See, the problem is in mathematics, as you go along, you will see your solution set or whatever it is, it will be given as a subset with this kind of property. Okay, the set A is set of all elements in X so that X has some property. Maybe X solves this equation like that. Okay, then the first thing you should know is you have to identify A concretely. I'm going to give example. All these things will look abstract. Don't worry. I'm going to give a very concrete example. Okay, let us do that. Suppose my X equal to R. My set A is this. Set of all real numbers x in R. Okay. So that x plus 1 by x is greater than or equal to 2. Now you see that I am not writing down what the set is. You follow that? Now I want to say what is the set. I have to identify this A. How many of you understand this question? Now you give me a real number 2. I want to know whether 2 belong to A. Right? Are you? How many of you are with me? So whenever a set is defined like this in the course of a proof or in the definition, okay, don't go ahead. You stop immediately, and from the set capital X, you take some element and check whether it belongs to A or not. Take some concrete element. For example, here I took 2. I want to know whether 2 is going to be there. Like that. You see, this is the art of exploring. Okay, like a child, you should play with it. You should not go ahead with the proof or with the argument. That's what many teachers and textbooks do. Now let's say 2. Does it belong to that? Yes, 2 plus 1 by 2. That's greater than or equal to 2, right? Does 0 belong to A? No, because 1 upon 0 does not make sense. Therefore, 0 is not in A. Okay. Does half belong to A? X will be half. 1 by x will be 2. That's also greater than or equal to 2. That also belongs to A. Does 1 belong to A? Yes. 1 plus 1 by 1. That belongs to A. You follow that? And now let us look at that. Suppose does minus 1 belong to A? Notice that if x is a negative number, this is negative. 1 upon x will also be negative. Therefore, this sum will be negative. Therefore, I can even say no negative number belongs to A. Okay. Therefore, A must be a subset of positive numbers because 0 is also not there. How many of you understand this logic? Quick. This is how you should learn to work with subsets defined by this kind of descriptive condition. Okay, this is subset. Now you want to know whether every element is there. Suppose you give me a real number alpha, which is positive. I want to know whether alpha is there. So that I have to check 1 plus 1 alpha plus 1 by alpha is it greater than or equal to 2. The moment you do that, okay, from our childhood or at least school days, okay, none of us like fractions. Clear up fractions. Alpha, remember alpha is positive. Therefore, if I can multiply both sides as inequality, therefore I will have alpha squared plus 1 minus 2 alpha. This is minus, is it greater than or equal to 0? That is, but this is alpha minus 1 whole square. That is always true. Therefore, any alpha which is positive will be in A. I already know A is a subset of positive reals, but I have proved any positive real number is equal lies in A. Therefore, equality holds. How many have you understood? I'll give it about 10 seconds. Go through this argument. So your set A is defined by some condition. So the first thing I told you is experiment, explore, play with it. Take some arbitrary real number, whatever your favorite numbers, and check whether it's going to be in A or not in A. When we played with it, we found no negative number can be there. Therefore, we made a guess A is already a subset of positive reals. The next thing is we already saw 2 is there, 1 by 2 is also there. If I take any natural number n and 1 upon n, that will also be there. That's what we checked. Therefore, I made a guess, maybe every positive real number must be there. So I have to check. Why is it taking time? This is, I mean, 8th, 9th standard student should be able to follow this logic now. Okay, discuss with your class discussion hour. I don't want to spend time on this.
60.
Yeah, but I'm not happy. It should have been much faster. Please pay attention, work with it. You know, as I said, in empty test classroom, you should think. Okay, you should think along with the teacher. It's not passive. Okay, it's not, no, I chant a mantra, you also repeat the mantra. Okay, we are not doing any parayan. Is that the word? Okay. Do you follow this? Okay, let us look at another example. Suppose I take an interval A comma B in R, where A is less than B. You give me a real number X. When does it, this, all of you think you know this subset. This is my subset A. Okay. The moment I write this, all of you think you understand. Now I want to say, I want you to think carefully. This set is also defined by conditions. This is set of all real numbers X in R, so that X satisfies some property. Okay. Don't say A less than X less than B. That's what all of you will say. But this is a combination. As I said, this is a combination of two sentences. Do you remember? A greater than or equal to 0 is a combination of two sentences. A equal to 0 or A greater than 0. Similarly, when you write A less than X less than B, it's a combination of two statements. This is the first statement. X must be greater than A. And this is the second statement. X must be less than B. So, this is same as saying X is greater than A and X is less than B. Somebody raise hand. Do you still have some problem?
No, sir, nobody. Oh, just no.
Sakshi, what's your problem?
Yes, sir. Sir, in the above equation, alpha minus 1 raised to 2 greater equal 0 implies that alpha is greater equal 1. But we saw that...
Oh, is that right? I am very surprised.
No.
Suppose I take alpha equal to minus 1. So, Sakshi, your real number system, you are in final year BSc, right? For any real number X, X squared is greater than or equal to 0. I am sure you know that.
Yes, sir.
Therefore, alpha minus 1 is a real number. Its square is greater than or equal to 0. Do you understand? So, there is no condition on alpha. Okay? For this for any real number alpha, this is true. But where do I use the fact alpha is positive? I use the fact alpha is positive when I wanted to multiply the inequality by alpha. Do you understand? Alpha is non-zero, it's positive. Therefore, I can multiply this inequality by alpha. Therefore, the inequality remains the same. I have to prove alpha plus 1 upon alpha minus 2 is greater than or equal to 0. This is true if and only if I multiply the inequality by any positive number, it will be true. I am going to multiply this inequality by the positive number alpha. Therefore, alpha squared, alpha times 1 by alpha will be 1, minus 2 times alpha. I have to prove is greater than or equal to 0. Do I know this is greater than or equal to 0? Yes. Because alpha minus 1 whole squared is always greater than or equal to 0. Because for any real number X, X squared is greater than or equal to 0. So, how many of you understand that?
Sir, I was saying that...
No. Please, okay. Discuss with your friends. It does not say alpha is greater than or equal to 1. Okay, that's what you said. That's wrong. Okay. Don't make me say in public various things. Okay. Please go through. Do you understand this? So, the open interval AB is defined by means of two conditions. X, a real number X belongs to A if and only if X is greater than A, and that statement must be true. And another statement must also be true. X must be less than B. Do you follow that? Therefore, if X is not in A, what does it mean? It means X, this statement is false. That means either this is false or this is false. That means X is less than or equal to A or X is greater than or equal to B. You understand that? X is not in A is same as X is in complement. So you have an AB. Okay. And X is not in A meaning it has to be this or it has to be this. X must be here somewhere. Okay. How many of you understand this? Begin to think. Okay. Don't go back to what you learned and get confused. Okay. Just for if you want to really play, now let us see how do you define closed interval. This will be set of X in R so that X is greater than or equal to A and x is less than or equal to b. Do you see that? How many of you agree with this? But you see the maths is actually more complicated. X is greater than or equal to a by itself is combination of two sentences. Either x equal to a or x is greater than a. Okay. So this is, I have something like S1 and S2. This is my S. Now here similarly I have an and this is x less than or equal to b is x is equal to b or x is less than b. This is my T1, this is my T2, this is my T. You see that? How complicated the statement is? Just for fun, think about. So I'm going to stop here. Stop here meaning this line of thought. So what have we learned now? In modern mathematics, if you give me a set X and a subset, usually A is defined by means of set of all X in X, so that X has some properties. As I said, it may be complicated. This P is, for example, X equal to A or X greater than A. Oh, okay, one of them must be true, and X equal to B or X less than B, one of them must be true. Okay, you see that? 1, 2, 3, 4. They are all used with various conjunctions and or. Okay, that's how you do. And once you look at such a set in anywhere, what you should do, your impulse is go to the next line. No, that's not correct. What you should do is take some your favorite elements from X and check whether it's going to be in A or it's not going to be in A. Because in the proof, you are going to use this property. Okay, you are going to use this condition. So if you just play with it, explore here, the proof will become easier for you. Okay, I hope the teachers who are attending explain this kind of thing when such an occasion arises in their course. Okay, that is why we ask all the teachers should be present in empty test classrooms. Okay. So I'll give you 20 seconds. Please go through it. Don't go through everything. Try to understand what we really learn. Quick.
Manoj has raised his hand.
Manoj?
Sorry. So in the third last question, you have written 1 by 2 belongs
No,
to
please discuss with your in the discussion hour. Okay. If you have problem, you come back.
Okay, sir.
Because there are 80 of you, 70 of you. If I take all problem, then I know we will not be able to do anything. That's why we have discussion hours. So can I go ahead? Please say yes if I can go ahead. Please lower your hand, Manoj. Right. So now I'm going to ask a question. This is final year students, right? BS level 1. So how many of you have learned an open cover and compactness in your course? Raise your, say yes, those who are done. No, I'm not going to ask any question, okay? Don't be afraid, okay? I just want to know how many of you have learned the word compactness, open covering, that kind of words. Okay, good, very good. 40 of you at least half of you. See, now the problem is, you see that, now I'm going to come. Suppose X is a set. Do you know what P of X stands for? This is a power set. Okay, this is set of all subsets. A, where A is a subset of X. Okay, this is a collection of all subsets of X, including empty set and X. Okay, right. Now what we want to do is, if you give me two sets A and B, or you give me finitely many sets A1, AN, in P of X, okay, from your school days, you know what is meant by A1 intersection A2 intersection AN. And similarly, you know what is A1 union A2 union AN. Can I assume all of you know that, right? Yeah. Now let's try to, so this A1, A2, An are all subsets of X. Okay. Now how will I define A1 union A2 union An as a subset of X? I have to tell you it is set of all X in capital X such that X has some property. Can somebody tell me what is the property it should have?
Shall I call?
Yeah, sure. Whenever I ask someone, you have to call somebody.
Sandeep Das?
Sir, it will be x1 belongs to x belongs to a1 or x belongs to a2. or
No,
so
don't
on
say
and so
that.
on.
Then I'm on if my n is something like I'm on trillion, you are going to say X belong to A1, X belong to A2, X belong to A3, X belong to A4, and up to trillion you will keep saying. Math is always, finds a short way to say the things.
So, sir, we will say x belongs to sum of ai.
Right. X belongs to some AI, right? Is that what you want to say?
Yes, sir.
Right. Now, how many of you see there is a quantifier involved? We already saw that in the morning. Whenever when somebody says some, that means there exists. Okay. Therefore, I have to say there exists. Okay. Because of presence of some, right? But the moment there is a quantifier there exists, there is a set. What is the set here? See, you see that there exists some AI. Therefore, what is the set is you want to talk about there is an I. Okay. So that X belong to AI. Therefore, there exists an I where in the set 1 to n. Okay, such that X belong to A. How many of you understand this? You are writing it carefully now. How many of you understood? There is I, not 1.
65.
Okay, good. Now it's much easier for you to say. So when I say X belong to A1 union A2 union AN, that means this statement is true. X belong to, let me call it as A. X belong to A, this statement is true, implies there is an I, so that X belong to A. I where in the set 1 to n. Okay. Therefore, what is the negation of this statement? X is not in A. If X is not in A, what does it mean? Can somebody tell me? Next.
Dhruvi? Kannan?
Kannan didn't answer in the morning also.
A1 X belong A1 intersection E2.
No, there is nothing like intersection. Please see, this is what I said. What you do is you try to remember what you learned, which was very, very vague, not complete understanding. So you don't get confused. I already said it. If X belong to A, that means there is an I, so that X belong to A. So this is false. That means you have to negate it. The entire morning we played with this. Next.
Suraj? Suraj?
For all I
No, I don't like that word.
given any I.
Yes, given any I in 1 to n, right? Then what happens?
X not element of A.
X not is element of A. So X does not lie in any of the AIs. Okay, yeah. Orally, that's what I will say. If X is not in A, simply means X does not lie in any AI. But mathematically, how will I write? Give me any I in between 1 and n. X is not an element of AI. How many of you understand this? You see that whatever I did in the morning, I am making sure in mathematical language you understand it. Okay. Please pay attention, learn. These are the things which are not taught properly. You just somehow by intuition you keep playing with this, with those symbols. Is it all right? Okay. How many we had answered?
60.
60, very good. Now, how do I define A1 intersection A2 intersection AN? This must again be subset X. Okay, set of all x in X with some property. What should be the property? Can somebody tell me? Quick.
Koday,
For all I belongs to I to N,
Yes. Very good.
X belongs to AI.
Very good. Excellent. What? Who is this?
Koday,
Koday. Very good. Do all of you understand? When X belongs to A1 intersection A2 intersection AN, what do you want to say? X is common to each and every AI. That's what you are saying. For all I, X is an element of AI. Okay. So let me again call it as A. So X belongs to A. Okay. If and only for all I am not writing I in 1 to N. Maybe I will write it. Okay. X belongs to A. This is a true statement. So if X is not in A, that is I am negating this. Can you ask somebody? What should it mean? Next.
Jairam Prakash,
There exists I such that X does not belongs to AI.
Right? So if X is not in the intersection, that means X is not in one of the AIs. That's what we are writing. Okay. What we orally say, intuitively keep saying, we are making it a precise statement. How many of you understood this? Please understand, because I am going to generalize this in a minute.
70.
Very good. Okay. Now we are going to look at a slightly more general version. You remember I defined what is P of X. So I want to define, okay, suppose I is some non-empty set. Okay. So for each I in I, okay, I am given a subset A. That is an element of Px. Do you understand this? Then I call this collection AI as I in I. This is a collection of subsets or family of subsets. Okay. And indexed by I, by capital I. This I is called the indexing set. Please mute yourself. You understand this? I will give an example. In this case, what is the indexing set for this? Indexing set is 1 to n. That's my I. You understand? For each I in the indexing set, I am given AI. That is A1, A2 or AN. Right? Do all of you understand? Okay. So let us give an example. Okay. Suppose my X is, let us say N. Okay. My indexing set I is P, set of primes. Okay. Do all of you know this? What I want now? For each I in I want a subset A of N. Okay. How do I define a subset? I usually define it by means of condition. So you give me a natural number N. When does N belong to A? If P divides N, which is same as saying N is a multiple of P. How many of you understand what I have defined? Oh, sorry, A in. So let me call it a P, P in I, AP, AP. Okay. How many of you understand this? My indexing set is set of all primes. Then for each prime, I am defining AP. What is P? You give me a natural number. Suppose I give you a 4. Does 5 belong to that? No. Does 27 belong to that? No. Does 28 belong to that? Yes. Because 7 divides 28. I hope I took P equal to 7, right? I don't know. Anyway, whatever. Are you following? Suppose P equal to 7. Then what is A7? 7 belong to that? Yes. 11? No. 10? No. 14? Yes. Are you following? 28? Yes. Okay. Do all of you understand AP? Quick. I chose this example because now you see set of natural numbers, you can keep writing 1, 2, etc. But set of primes, you do not know, except you know it is an infinite set, right? Set of primes is infinite, Euclid's theorem, all of you know. Whether you have a proof or not, doesn't matter. All of us know that, right? But I do not know, can I write the list of all prime numbers? No. But I can define the subset AP. You understand this? So now what do I have? I have a collection AP as P varies over P. These are all a family of subsets of natural numbers indexed by the set of primes. How many of you understand this example? Good. Okay. Now let's look at one more example. This is my example 1. So I'll use a different color for this then. This is example 1. Now I want to look at example 2. My X is R2. Right? My indexing set is I equal to R. Okay? You understand? Let me say I minus 1 to 1. Okay? This is my indexing set. Now I want to define for each, let us say for each T here, I want to define a subset AT. That must be a subset of R2. I am going slow, please understand. This is the indexing set, you are going to give me a T. You can call it also I, but I will call it T because it's going to be a real number. Okay? Therefore, it must be a subset of R2. How is it defined? This is set of all ordered pairs XY in R2 with what property? The X coordinate must be equal to T. Right? Can you imagine this? Can you visualize this set in R2? So this is minus 1. This is plus 1. Okay. When T equal to 0, this is going to be this set, this for y-axis. And when T equal to 1, that's going to be this. And when T equal to half, this is going to be this. The entire line. Do you understand that? The only condition is the first coordinate, X coordinate must be T, nothing else. Therefore, it's a vertical line parallel to the x-axis. That's my AT. How many of you understand this? Quick. So now I have a family AT where T is in the indexing set minus 1 to plus 1. This is a family of subsets of R2. Only 46?
Only
This
40.
is very bad.
50, 62. 69.
See, this is somewhat geometry, you can see that. Whereas in the earlier case, it's very abstract. Do you see that? That's a fun. Right? Okay. Now what I want to do, okay, I want to define union and intersections. Of family of subsets. Okay. So let us go back. So I have a set X. Okay. I have an indexing set which is non-empty. Indexing set. For each I in I have AI, a collection of subsets, a family of subsets. Now I want to define, this is my notation, union AI. This is my notation. Okay. How do I read it? Union of AIs as I varies or I varies over I. Okay. Remember, I still have to define. Now, I want the definition from you. I'm not going to give. Let's go back. How did he define A1 to AN? Okay. Specifically look at this. And similarly, look at how did he define intersection AN? Okay. So how many of you think you can define what is the union AI? Okay. This is by definition set of all X in capital X with. Please think, take your time, no hurry. I will give you 10 seconds or maybe 20 seconds. All of you think. See, you will feel proud that you got the definition by yourself instead of my saying. Once it crosses 60, you ask somebody. First, what do you want to say of union A? When does X, an element X in X, belong to union A? If X belong to some A, that's all you will say. You understand that? This is okay, right? As you do, X belongs to some A. This is the intuitive way of saying. Now I want a mathematical way. Go back. How did you define here?
It's hovering at 56.
I'm very, unhappy. That means they are not ready to think. Remember, in the earlier question, you know the answer, but you are afraid, you are shy. Okay, you lost the opportunity to say that, yes, I did it.
Yeah, 60 years. Uchika Jain?
There exists a T in I such that X belongs to AP.
Very good. There exists I in I such that X belongs to A. That's it. Don't you think all of you should have done it? See, please remember what I said in the morning. You should be ready to make mistakes. You never learn anything without making mistakes. Whatever your teachers say, your parents say, don't make mistakes, is wrong. Without making mistakes, I never learned anything. Nobody learned anything. Whenever we learn anything new, we will always make some mistakes, but we learn from them. So please, don't worry. How many of you understand at least now? Now that somebody has said, now you should say yes. But you should pinch yourself. Why I didn't say that? Those who did not say, please pinch yourself.
$65.
Let us ask the next question. What should be the next question? Can somebody say what should be the next question?
Arijit Pal?
How to define intersection?
Very good. Okay, let us do that. Now, how to define intersection AI? Okay, what is the intuitive way of saying? Set of all elements which are common to or which belong to all AIs, right? It must be set of all elements in X that lie or that are common, that lies in all AI. This is the intuitive way of defining. Now, how do I define it precisely? Go back to intersection, how we define A1 intersection A2 intersection AN. Now, at least I want 70 to say, yes, I know the answer. How to define intersection?
Yeah, 70 has come.
Wow.
71.
71.
75.
Excellent, excellent. So you ask somebody now from some other group. How do I define?
Dharati? Yes, speak.
For all I
Yeah.
belongs to I, X
Yeah.
belongs to AI.
Absolutely, very good. You see that? It's exactly, we are simply copy paste. You understand that? Except I wrote here 1 to n. Yeah, here I wrote to 1 to n. If I written I simply copy paste it. Yeah, do you understand that? Okay, instead of writing 1 to n, if I denoted by this by I simply copy and paste it there. No change. How many of you appreciate? Okay, so you given any arbitrary collection of subsets of a given set, we have defined, first we have defined what is meant by indexed family of subsets. Second, we have defined what is meant by union of an indexed family of subsets and the intersection of an indexed family of subsets. These are the three things we have learned. Now let us just make sure that we understand. Now let's go back to example 1. We have defined what is AP, right? For every prime P, okay, it contains multiples of P, nothing more. P must be divisor of n. Yeah. So what do you think union AP is here? Now think carefully, it's not difficult. So I should have natural numbers n. What should be the property here? At least look at the definition. What is the intersection union AP? Maybe I will use that so that you can quickly see that. Okay, this is the definition. Okay, using this, what will be union AP? This will be set of all x natural numbers such that there exists a P in P, right? So that P divides, P must be in AP. Okay, sorry, x must be in AP, but x is in AP is same as saying P divides x. How many of you understand this? Quick. X belong to AP. I'm writing the definition also here. Yeah. So it is set of all natural numbers so that it has at least one prime divisor. That's all it means, right? If x has to be in union AP, that means there is a prime divisor P. Okay. See that you should not simply play with this notation. You should also try to internalize. That's what I mean. You should visualize. What does this say? It simply says there is a prime divisor of x. Right? Therefore, when does a natural number belong to union AP? If there is a prime divisor. As simple as that. How many of you follow what I'm saying? So, union AP is nothing but the set of natural numbers which have a prime divisor. Or a prime divides them. How many of you understand this? Quick. So now ask somebody the answer.
Sakshi Jain.
Sakshi was already called.
Okay. Dia.
Sir, x.
No, I want a concrete answer now. Don't say, you don't repeat the same definition. What are the integers, natural numbers which are going to be in the union? Or you can tell me which natural number is not there, if at all. Yeah.
So all natural numbers is in the union.
Okay, it's equal to n. How many of you agree with that? Is there somebody who does not agree with this? Raise hand. Those who does not raise hand. Sri Lakshmi, you don't agree with that. Why?
1 does not belong to the set.
Very good. 1 does not have a prime divisor. Right? Given any natural number greater than 1, there exists a prime divisor. So, this is n minus 1. Do you see that? We are not only teaching mathematics, we are also teaching you how to ask questions so that you can solve a problem. Okay? If you are you are all young, so you may not really see that we are training you. So by lot of questions I asked here. See, what does it mean to say, for example, x belong to AP? That means x must be a multiple of P, or P must be a divisor. Therefore, what does this mean? That means set of all natural numbers which admit a prime divisor. You see that? How do you turn to think? Learn that kind of thing. Okay? Very good. Now let's look at this. Second problem. I had x equal to R2, I equal to -1 to +1. Right? And my AT for AT here was this line. So I am up to, this is -1. Sorry, +1. This is -1. This is my AT for T here. Right? Okay. Now tell me, what is union of union? So it is a subset xy in R, set of all ordered pairs xy in R2. Can somebody geometrically say what it should be? How many of you understand what I'm going to say? This is the vertical strip between these two vertical lines, -1 to +1. How many of you understand this? Because you start with any element here, okay? X comma y, okay? That what does it mean? X must lie between -1 and +1. T can be anything, right? Therefore, this point xy should lie in Ax, because this point xy lies here. You understand this? Suppose xy lies here, okay? This is set of all xy in R2, so that the only condition is -1 less than or equal to x less than or equal to 1, which is same as saying x lies in the interval -1 to +1. Okay, so it is the vertical strip bounded by these two lines, y equal to -1, no, x equal to -1 and x equal to +1. Okay, please discuss this in the discussion hour if you are struggling.
Sir, 5:15.
Yeah, I saw that. Okay, so before we conclude, the last thing. Now, sir, look at your ordinary thing. If A intersection B, A union B, what is the relation between these two sets? All of you know that, right? Okay, since the time is up, so I don't want to spend, all of you know. So, what is the question I should ask now? Can somebody tell me what is the question I am asking? Now I know this. From this, I want to generalize. What question should I ask? Quick. Yeah, ask somebody. The time is up, so we will not wait for 60.
Drasti? Ekta?
Intersection AI is a subset of union B.
Very good. I want to know whether this is a subset of union A. There is a reason why I want to discuss this, because you may remember I insisted the indexing set is non-empty. Do you remember that? Keep that in mind. Now, when I want to prove this is a subset of this, if I want to prove A is a subset of B, what is that I have to prove? For all x in A, they have a common property, namely x is in B. Do you understand this? When I want to prove A is a subset of B, I am claiming all elements of A have a common property, namely they are all elements of B, right? Therefore, what I have to do? You start with any element x here, then I have to prove x belongs to this, right? Now, x belongs to intersection A, what is the meaning? Hello? Yeah.
Priyanshi?
The row line X belongs to A.
Sir, a little louder. Okay. Pallavi?
Sir, given any I belongs to I, X belongs to A.
A, right? Now I want to prove x belongs to the union A. Then what should I prove?
Sir, you have stopped the screen sharing?
Yes, because it's a crash. Okay, so I'm opening it again. The journal crashes often. I don't know why. Not only that, it's are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I want to prove x is in intersection AI implies x is in union AI. So I'm not going to write. Please listen to me properly. When I want to prove x belongs to union AI, what does it mean? I have to find one index, call it j. Okay. Instead of I0, I want to call it j. There is one index j in I such that x belongs to aj. Do you follow that? You may think it's easy. Why? Because you said X belongs to intersection AI. If I is not empty, then there is at least one index J in I. You follow that? X belongs to intersection AJ. If I is not empty, then there is at least one J in I. Therefore, X belongs to each and every AI. Therefore, X belongs to AJ. Since X belongs to AJ, there is a J such that X belongs to AJ, and hence X belongs to union AI. How many of you understand this? I am not writing. You should learn to think.
$51.
Okay. Now I got it back, so let me write. So X belongs to intersection AI. I want to know whether it says X belongs to union AJ. Yeah.
We could not see, sir.
Yeah, I'm sharing. Please wait. There is always, whenever there is a time, thing, there is a pressure. Okay. Right? When does X belong to union AI? That means I have to prove whether there is a J in I such that X belong to AJ. Now you may think it's clear. Why? Because X belong to intersection AI means X belong to AI for all I. Therefore, what is the problem? No. Now, if I is not empty, then there is at least one element. Call that element as J. Now, X belong to intersection AI means X belong to each and every AI. In particular, X belong to AJ. Since X belong to AJ, I have proved there is a J in I such that X belong to AJ. Therefore, X belong to union AI. Okay? This kind of precise thinking you may not have been exposed to. Many of you may have problem, but please think. This I was able to prove only under the assumption this indexing set is not empty. That is why I wanted to, because when you think of A intersection B, these are all easy. Okay? That is why when you do open covering, etc., lot of cheating is going on unless you have learned the definitions carefully. Okay? Now, I'm sorry I took extra 5 minutes. That's it.